Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to another episode of Raising the Flag. Today, we are fortunate to have one of the fastest guys in the world this year, number five best 400-meter sprinter in the world. He finished fifth at the World Championship. He holds the fourth fastest African 400-meter time of all time. We are fortunate to have Nene, Zakithi. Nene, please correct me if I mention your name wrong. Welcome to the show.
Nah, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. And no, you got my name pretty right, man. It's Zakithi Nene. Zakithi. But I mean, that little bit of a little touch to it as well is also unique. So I'll accept that.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time. To not waste much of your time, what an awesome season you've had this year. Breaking 44 seconds for the first time, leading Team SA to win their first gold in the relays at the World Relays, then leading Team SA again to win bronze in the relays. Well, how would you describe your season so far this year?
Yeah, I think you put it pretty well. I think this has been an amazing season for me, breakthrough season, if I would put it like that. So yeah, I think I was, like if you look at my track record, over the last couple of years, I've been an athlete that can go out there, irregardless of the season, regardless of my prep, any injuries whatsoever, I'd go out there and be able to run a 44.7, 44.8, like in the calendar year, and I've been doing that for the past 3-4 years. So I've been hovering around that 44.7 region, for like 3-4 years. So I've been stagnant. So I was more fixated on breaking the 44.5 barrier more than anything, And then when that happened, then I found so much consistency in that, the 43 for me was probably the most easiest race of all the races that I've ran this year, and being able to run that time. And I remember, the first thing I did as well when I picked up the call and called my coach, like, I don't think that's a 43. It didn't feel like a 43, And when I look back and I watch the race and I watch it unfold and I see the splits, I'm like, yeah, actually, okay, that's about right. But just like the effort that was put in, it didn't get 43 for me, Yeah.
What's funny about that? Because most athletes, like, they run their fastest times and it feels effortless. What would you say contribute to factors like that? Because people try so hard and they don't get the time, but the time comes mostly when it feels effort. It feels like you didn't put any effort in it. What would you say contributes to that?
I think like for me, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I was so fixated on breaking like that 44.5 barrier. So you put in so much effort to do that, and when I already had broken that and ran it a couple of times, I had no pressure onto myself as to I need to run this time. I wasn't fixated on the time that I needed to run. I was more so, I think in that race, I was outright favorite to win that race. So my thing was that let me just live up to the billing, not necessarily put a time to it. Let me just make sure like I win the race. Let me go through my phases and win the race, And I think that's when we it usually comes more so when you're not so fixated on the times, but more so fixated on the facets of your race and making sure that you tick those boxes. So yeah, but it's tricky, because the sport, we more so concerned about the time and things. If things aren't working out the way they're supposed to, you get a little frustrated. So yeah.
That is awesome. One of the questions that I was gonna ask you is that what would you say like your overall season from indoors all the way to one of the consistent athletes in the 400 meters this year and one of the favorites, even though World didn't go as you wanted it, but you still had a great season. What would you say contributed to your overall season from indoors to the World Relays to outdoors, breaking 43 to leading Team SA? What would you say contributed to your overall success this year? Because you've had a very great season this year.
Indoor season not so much, in indoors, I went there with like a target. I felt as if I was in a position whereby I was like, I was targeting like the indoor national record, so that's where my head was at. And so the indoor season didn't obviously play out the way I would have liked to, I would have hoped, which is why I chose not to go to World Indoor. But in terms of prep leading up to this outdoor season, I think it just started. I was very much disappointed with how Olympics turned out for me, given the fact that I've been running the event for a number of years now, and I've been in the circuit. I've raced a couple of guys, and I'm of age. I was 26 then, and I expected much better results. And the form and shape that I showed in training suggested that too. So I found myself in a position whereby my coach and I, we tried to relearn the event, rediscover myself in the event, what I've known because I've been running the 400 for since I was 15. What I've known for the past 11 years on a race pattern for the 400. Let's look at maximizing how he calls it, maximizing this bottle of energy that we have. Whereas I would run it in such a way that before I'd let me run and meet my targets to 300 and see how well I can hold. And this year around, it was a situation where we're okay, cool, we have this bottle of energy. If we reserve a little bit more over the first two, how will the body respond for the second half of the 200? And so the training program, the strength work that I put in, everything was more so to accommodate this new race model that we are about to adopt. And so I think when I ran the first 400 that I ran in Botswana, I broke my PB, and I felt because I was given strict instructions, I need you to be in this position so you can do this, and then we'll see what the outcome is. And I followed those strict instructions, and I broke my PB. I ran a 44.6, and the question asked me, how did that feel? If you had asked me to give a little bit more, I could have given a little bit more. So that was a huge confidence booster. So then when we started, working a little bit, eating up a little bit of splits in the first two, to see how we will respond the second two, and I started running 44.2s, and I did so consistently. And I was over the last couple of years, I was actually whereby I'd be very much privileged and happy that I could get a lane in the Diamond League, so whatever the outcome is, okay, cool now, but I'm happy that I'm competing with the best in the world. Right now, this year, I was competitive with the rest of the world, so when that you're lining up against me, I'm gonna run with you to the line, and I'm gonna take it there. And so it was all momentum that, and the confidence building up, from the first race to how I ran in nationals. And when we came to World Relays, I think World Relays for us South Africans comes at the perfect time, in terms of like how our season is structured. It's usually like a week or two after our national champs. So
exactly.
So we show much better form and shape than any other country. Or than most countries, because most of the athletes are really like opening up their season. So we expected nothing less than a gold, to be quite honest. So, and you see it with like every other team that we were able to field, with the 4x1, the mixed, and also the women as well, because we don't necessarily have the strongest of women, but the women in the 4x4 were able to actually go ahead and win a bronze medal. So it just obviously suggests like the form and shape that we were in. And I think the rest of the season was just like history, just building on that momentum, that I've had, for the first couple of races. And so that's how I would sum up the season, like amazing season. And just looking to go from that as well, for 2026.
Awesome. Well, that's a great summary, by the way. And you speaking about your race, how you have strategized your 400-meter race. What would you say is your biggest strength in the 400? Because this season we've seen you a lot have a very strong kick at the back straight, the home straights in the 400. Would you say that is your biggest strength, or your strength lies at other part of the race?
my funny enough, my weakness over the last couple of years was being my last 100. I would come into the last 100 and hope and pray that my legs can hold. And if you look at my strength this time around was actually that. Whenever I post, whatever the case is, or if I read comments and also stuff like, if you could work on these last 100, if you could work on these last 100, and you're like, okay, cool. Let's actually, yeah. I mean, they know something.
The social media coaches, yeah.
Yeah, but it's something that we've obviously pinpointed out, but I think it was just like alarmed, like largely, then. So it's like, okay, cool. Actually, and that was like literally like the strength. My strongest point in the race was like my last 100. If I'm in striking distance, I'll be able to go ahead and execute. So yeah, which with all that being said, I don't know if you're still gonna ask me later, but that's why I haven't quite been able to what's the word that I'm looking for? But to I haven't quite gotten over the 400 meters at Worlds. Because I think my coach and I made a strategic error in that sense, whereby we reverted to what we used to do, because I felt so confident in how I was going about in the rounds that in actual fact, I do feel like I have energy. I do feel like I'm strong. If you want me to go a little bit faster, then I can still do that, and I'll be able to come back. So yeah, it was like a hard pill to swallow, because I know what we know what we've been doing right, but we opted to do something different, and it didn't play out the way we had hoped for. So
that was gonna be my next question. I was gonna ask you, what would you say went right at Worlds, and what went wrong for you at Worlds, and what have you learned from whatever happened at World? Because you were one of the favorites, and even though it didn't happen for you, what was your takeaway?
Yeah, leading up to Worlds, just to track back a little bit, I actually got a grade 2 tear in my hamstring in Budapest. Budapest was 5 weeks out of Worlds, so I tore my hammy in the warm-up area for the race. So I pulled out there and pulled out a Brussels Diamond League, pulled out a Zurich Diamond League, and what the scan suggested was that it's gonna take 6 to 8 weeks. It's gonna be a 6 to 8 weeks window, and week 6 lies on the first day of the relays. So yeah, so I think definitely giving a whole lot of credit to my medical team, because I was able to patch up. I did from physio treatment to seeing my doctor, whatnot, and doing hyperbaric sessions every single day leading up to the day I had to depart for World Champs. And the team, if to give you context, the team left a week before, and I only arrived 4 days before the start of day 1 of the heats, because that's like the time frame that they've given me, and I could go through like a series of tests to know if I can run or not run. So definitely take my hats off to them. I was back in 2.5 weeks and able to put in work as well. So with that being said, I trained well leading up to the heats, but we didn't know how well my body was going to hold, whether I was going to be able to do rounds, so on and so forth.
The uncertainty after coming back from injuries.
Yeah, so we exceeded expectations, and I was oozing with confidence. The way I ran my heats and the way I ran my semis. So definitely beyond expectation, because as much as I was walking in there with the world lead, with the target on my back, the magical blue bib, we didn't know how the body was gonna respond, and it actually responded pretty well, and I was very much happy with that, and I was able to put myself in a position whereby I could contend for the medals as well. So Worlds was a tricky journey leading up to it, but once we got there, yeah, it was a very pleasant one.
So after the first round, when you realize that okay, the body is ready to roll, did you make any adjustment? Were you, any adjustment made afterwards, like attacking the semifinals, and what other adjustment was made after the first round?
I think it was all about managing the race. Yeah, I think like for the heat and the semifinals, it was all about managing the race, make sure you're in that sort of striking distance, whatnot. And if you need to kick, go ahead and kick.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I got a bit of criticism, for looking left and right. But in actual fact, it was all about managing the race, not necessarily a means of like showboating or anything like that. I got the utmost respect for my competitors, and so yeah, it wasn't like a means of like showboating, but more so like managing the race. Like, don't like be alert for the unexpected if anyone is to come kicking whatnot, and don't exert any unnecessary energy, and that's how it was for the heat and the semis. And I think the decision that was taken for the final was due to the fact that I looked so composed and so relaxed throughout the rounds that we felt like there was much more in the tank, which wasn't the case.
Oh, okay. Okay. So basically, kind of like analyze it a little bit in the finals. That is what also contributed to that, if I got you right.
Yeah. Nah. So yeah. So I think it was a matter of you can go ahead and attack the race the way you can, because he wanted me to chip in it just a little bit from what my first 20-meter target would be, and be able to hold and go through my phases the way I'm supposed to, and on paper it made so much sense. It sounded like something that was very much doable. But I think it's something that we hadn't really explored, because now we had adopted this new race pattern, and I think that's where my legs failed me the way they did.
But overall, it was a great season. Moving on from that, what would you say is your favorite race of the season? Because you did a lot of races. You were very consistent, low 44s. After your 43, you were consistent running low 44s. And what would you say is your favorite race of the season?
I think it was, I would say, Rome Diamond League, when I ran, which was a week after my 43, and I ran against Quincy Hall.
Yeah,
I ran against Quincy Hall, and I mean, you know the rep that Kenya the rep. No, not him. The reputation that Kenya has. Athletes can't really replicate what the performance that they run there. It's a high altitude, and so it was being able to back up that performance. Yes, it wasn't according to the time, because I ran a 43 the previous week, but it wasn't like a fluke. You can't go ahead and say it was like a full second differential from my performances last week, but I was able to go ahead and be competitive and take it to the line, like with the Olympic champion. So I think that for me has definitely been like my favorite race.
Yeah, that is also, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't realize that if you don't have the strength to run that fast, you don't have the technical abilities and the strength and the training to run that fast, even if you are put in the highest altitude in the world, you won't be able to break it regardless. So it doesn't matter. So when people are making those kind of comments, it's just laughable. As a former athlete myself, it's laughable because you can give people all the wind in the world. If you can't break that time, you can't break it regardless. So I'm glad you brought that up. And this season you've traveled around the world. You've traveled to me. Which place would you say is your favorite place to travel to compete?
To compete. So we I think this year was my first time going to London, and to London Diamond League. So everyone Akani kept telling me, like, if there's a race you want to go to on the circuit, it's London Diamond League. Like, that's the closest thing to that world champs and Olympic field, you know, because like it's always like a full stadium. The spectators there are very knowledgeable of the sport, you know, and to top it all off, there's a whole lot of South Africans that live in London, so you as an athlete, as a South African, you get a whole lot of recognition there too. So I think in terms of competing, definitely London Diamond League, I'm making it a conscious effort to have that on my calendar from here onwards. In terms of this year was like my second time being based, so we usually obviously given the weather, you know, by the time the summer year kicks in, it's winter here in South Africa, so most of us are usually based in Europe for like three months or so, and then travel from meet to meet, you know, just makes it so much easier. So this year was the second time I was based in Oem in Switzerland, and if there's a place I could relocate to, if there was that sort of, because I've never seen myself leaving South Africa, if there was a place I could relocate to, I think Switzerland is the country for it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So moving back to South Africa, Team SA, I know you guys have a really strong bond, the relay team and all that. Who would you say, which of the athletes on the relay team would you say is one of your favorite to travel with? I know you have Akani. I've seen you with Akani a couple of times traveling around with you, but which of them would you say is your favorite to travel with, and why?
Well, I can't really say relay team. I'll just say because obviously he's running the 4x1, around the 4x4. So if I was to say like the South African national team, definitely Akani. So yeah, you know, I never really quite understood why, but the guy, he grew fond of me, you know, and it went from the relationship that we had, you know, I don't want to use the word idolize him, but I looked at him as a role model, you know, the way he carries himself, you know, and I think the adversity that he has faced, you know, all over the years, and being able to come back and bounce back, be like, okay, let's try again. So that's something that has just that stood out for me. But yeah, you know, the guy has, you know, he has grew fond of me, and right now the relationship that we had is more like a brotherhood, you know. I see him as a mentor, and you know, so the chats that we have, I gain like a whole lot of like, you know, advice from him, you know. And apart from that, you know, he doesn't quite show it, but he's actually a very funny guy too. He's actually quite a funny guy. So yeah, I think if there's one person I'll always travel with, you know, and if there's a situation whereby we like as a team we put in a situation whereby we need to share, he knows. Like I don't even need to ask, and he doesn't need to ask. Like he's gonna be my roommate.
That's awesome. So let's take it back a little bit. You know, South Africa holds the world record. Wayde has the world record. What inspiration do you get from Wayde? You know, he have set a bar really high for South Africa, and that record, I know maybe one day it's a target for you, or it's a target for you, and you might not know what will happen in the next few years. You might be able to break it or something like that. But what does that standard give South African 400 athletes?
The standard right now in the 400 in South Africa is really, really high. You know, it's at an all-time high. I think, but like, I think because most of the guys we were fairly young. You know, we were fairly young when Wayde broke the, like, you know, like the world record. You know, so it's I think the way we also like viewed it as well is like. We put him on the pedestal that he deserves, you know. So it was like, oh yeah, I hope I can do that, you know. It was more like a hopeful thing, not necessarily like something that is, you could outright say, attainable. Because the next closest person that could run that fast back then was like a guy with a 45.2, 45.3. So it was like a bit of a reach, you know, to be like, okay, cool, actually I want to run 43, whatnot. But yeah, like I think, but there onwards, you know, and like I was from the crop of athletes that are there,
Yeah.
I was the first one to break the 45-second barrier. And there onwards, I think, and the guys can say it too, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but they saw it as, okay, someone that we are competing with just did that,
Yeah.
someone right here in our sphere. So that sounds much more attainable right now.
Yeah.
And that's now we've got like two other guys that have been sub 45, sub 45, and in quick succession, whereas we had like a full-on drought.
Yeah.
And now that I've gone on to run a 43, I strongly believe that the other guys too feel like a 43 is also like very much doable, and so on and so forth. I was telling one of the other guys in our relay squad 2-3 years ago, I would be winning national champs in a 44.3, 44.5, 45, whatever the case is. And now with the 45.3, you can't even you can barely medal. You barely make a final with that, and that's how the standard is right now. The last two World Junior Champs for the 400 are South Africans. Udemo Okon won the last edition. The edition before that was like Pele. So that goes on to show the crop of athletes that are coming up, and the standard in the 400 as well, and the standard that we have set for you to make the relay team too.
Yeah, that is very refreshing to hear. And before I let you go, before we finish this interview, you've become a global star right now. A lot of people look up to your race model, and they are trying to using you as a role model right now to model their race, to inspire themselves, South Africans and athletes all around the world, in Africa and all that. What advice would you give any athlete out there who is aspiring to get to your level and also be like you one day, maybe South Africa or any part of Africa? What advice would you give athletes?
Yeah, you can draw inspiration from my story, but I think it's all about trying to narrate your story, and be the main character in your story, so trying to compile your own story, as I'm to mention, so yeah, definitely you can draw a whole lot of inspiration from me and stuff, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I think that's the first sort of like advice I would give, is just be yourself, and enjoy yourself, and I think I think in terms of your race model and all that, it's work towards your strength. We're not all structured the same, and so I think work what's best to what works according to your strengths, and that's what I have done.